Oh, okay.
And she's the public health chair.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All right.
Jack,
Yeah.
when I signed all the resolutions, the budget resolution, the first one was hidden in the stack. I didn't see it. Steve Smith signed it.
Oh, okay.
But
But
Dan,
he's good. Okay.
yeah.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, Steve signed it just for filing
Yeah, I
purposes,
noticed that.
but,
Yeah. Okay.
but Tommy's going to present it. So.
How are you feeling, big man?
Doing better. Doing better, man.
Well, the one thing I'll tell you is take what breaks you need. If you need a break in a couple
Yeah.
hours,
No.
an hour and a half,
Well, we're good.
take it.
Hey, Brandon, how you doing? I'm good. I'm good. Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
We're glad you're back too, buddy.
Yeah,
We've been thinking
thank
about
you.
you.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
I was scared I was going to have to break somebody in during the damn deadgum budget meeting. I was like, that's not going to be fun.
Me too. Me too.
So you were just feeling bad? And
Yeah, just after the county commission meeting, I do the radio show in the morning, so I went over to Columbia State, and I'm walking up the sidewalk to meet Tom Lawrence, and I got wounded. I said,
Commissioner,
I gotta
you have
start
to
working out.
set the example here.
I'm on a blood thinner, be careful.
I'm not going to pick you.
Uh,
I hope so.
Thank you. But I got winded. I said, man, I need to work out. I mean, Wednesday night, I couldn't sleep. It hurt
Okay.
so bad. We ready?
Yes, sir.
Good morning. I'd like to call the July 11th, 2016 Williamson County Board of Commissioners to order. First order of business, we have the invocation and pledge. Invocation by Commissioner Paul Webb and the pledge by Commissioner Tommy Little. Please stand.
Let us pray. Almighty God, we stand before you today with our heads bowed. We give thanks to you for all the blessings we have received in our homes and in our community. We're here today to do the business of our government. We humbly ask your guidance in all of our decisions today. Lord, we ask you to be with our fellow member Lou Green and his family as they grieve the loss of his brother. We ask that you comfort our member Dwight Jones and the family of his beloved wife Shannon Jones as they grieve her passing. May you hold these families close, dear Lord, and show your everlasting love for them. We give thanks to you, dear Lord, for our chairman, Jack Walton, is able to be here today. We ask that your presence be with everyone serving our country here as well as around the globe, and that you protect them from danger. Please open our hearts and minds, dear Lord, that we may be thankful for all of our blessings in these troubled times, and let our faith be strong. We offer this prayer to you, Almighty God, whose love is everlasting. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, next we have roll call. If you're present, push your yes button and confirm. Record the roll, Ms. Anderson. Oh. Oh.
I have 22 present.
Commissioner Williams. Bethard.
And David.
Push your button.
I gotta get on the stick. I missed all. All right, now, now record the roll, Ms. Anderson.
22 present, 2 absent.
All right, thank you. Next, we have the approval of minutes of the June 13, 2016 County Commission meeting. Copies were mailed to each member. I'll entertain a motion.
Move for.
Commissioner Smith and Commissioner Allsbrooks the second. All in favor of those is...
No,
We got to vote? Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
no, we have
Oh, Commissioner Bethard?
No, and I was trying to say that I was present.
Push your button, Barb, so I know you want to speak now.
Okay,
Are
Commissioner
we
Sturgeon?
swapped again? Because I pushed a request to speak.
You're on?
I'm on, okay. All right, I just noticed when I read the meeting minutes from last month that it said our public comment speakers were against, it said all three were for lowering the current tax rate. That's what the meeting minutes say. And I went back and watched the video, and what I heard them say was, we don't want a tax rate increase. We would like to see developers carry more of the burden. That's what I heard all three say. So if we could correct that, I think it would be a more accurate representation of what the public comment was.
All right, if it be the will of the commission, we would need an amendment to the minutes, so.
So I motion to make an amendment.
All right, is there a second? Commissioner Lawrence, a second. Can we just voice vote, or? Yes. All in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And so they're amended. Do we need to approve them again as amended? Okay. So we'll go back and approve the minutes as amended of the June 13th, 2016 County Commission meeting. All in favor as amended signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And it passes. Next, we have citizens' communication. So we've got 10 people signed up, and so that gives each person 3 minutes to speak. The first one we have is Gary Baker.
Good morning. My name is Gary Baker. I'll have to say, any meeting that starts with a prayer, it gives me a lot of confidence that good thinking and good decisions will
Mr.
emanate
Baker,
from that meeting. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, my fault. Would you state your name and address?
Name is Gary Baker. Address 1350 King Lane. Address is Franklin, Tennessee.
Okay.
Or
Thank you.
sometimes known as Eagles Rest Farm.
Okay.
Maybe the more appropriate description of my address for today's meeting. I appreciate the opportunity to briefly speak with each of you this morning. I have one simple goal, and that is to at least give each of you a glimpse of the information that you need to make the right, the intelligent, and the best vote possible for the citizens of Williamson County, which I feel like is the overwhelming desire of a majority of the members of this board. If I do that, I will accomplish my goal. If I fail, then let me tell you that I stand ready to answer any question at any time about this property, about the development, about the past and the present and the future as pertains to this property, because it's important for what you people are going to be voting on. I guess we could say there are two reasons, overwhelming and compulsive, why this amendment, the amendment to file a lawsuit, should be voted down. I will very briefly mention the first, because it will be addressed much more fully by a couple of other speakers. When we as a county start suing each other, usually bad things result. Number one, it's an expenditure of a lot of money. Taxpayer dollars, I think already talking appropriations out of the budget of $50,000, and of course we know that's usually just the start when lawyers get fired into it. Then of course the other aspects of Williamson County has to meet that with an equivalent sum. And then after that, the additional lawsuits and all that are filed, and before long we're spending $250,000 of taxpayer money, and what do we have to show for it? Especially when this problem can be so resolved so simply. It's the kind of thing that Mayor Anderson could pick up the phone and talk to Mayor Napier, and at the snap of a finger, figuratively speaking, this thing is fixed. We feel like if you go back and check out the prerequisites, all the conditions precedent to the 104 exception for ag land, they were fully met in this case. But it's immaterial, doesn't matter. because the simple fix is not to go back and look at what was done, but just simply go back and do it with a referendum. And that's what we've already undertaken to do, and the appropriate people at Thompson Station have assured us that they will do what's necessary on their end. Why? Because this project is so important to this county.
Mr. Baker, 30 seconds.
The history, I'll give you in 5 seconds. We've tried to sell this farm for continuing farming operation for over 4 years to no avail. In the meantime, we've stiff-armed developer after developer, and the main problem, and some of the contracts that are sitting on my desk right now, waiting for signature, folks, they're sitting there in printed form. The problem that I tried to stiff-arm these people was because they wanted to put too many houses on there. I did not want to see it. I want what is good for this county just as much, believe me, as any one of you do. And then, thankfully, along comes these folks. And thankfully, they put together a project that this county will be proud of, a legacy county, and not just throw another subdivision up that this county does not need. What this county needs is the national level, attention-getting, quality, legacy-leaving development that these folks are talking about. I'm tickled with what they're talking about for this county. And yeah, we had all the naysayers and the screamers at Cool Springs. We went through all of that. And if I've got to shut up, I will. But wow, I wish I could. There's so much you guys need to know to make an intelligent vote. If I need to wait around during lunch, Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to do it because there's so much information they need to cast an intelligent vote. But the bottom line, yes, I'm asking you to vote this resolution down for the good of the county of Williamson. We need this project. We don't need just another subdivision with more houses on my farm than these people are proposing. More, not less.
Thank you, Mr. Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the committee.
I appreciate what you've done for this county. Next we have Paul Pratt.
Good morning, Mayor. Good morning, County Commissioner. Good morning, legal staff. I'm here as an investor in this development and in this project. Mr. Castro on Resolution 7-1632 is challenging the annexation of Mr. and Ms. Baker's land. It is a very much a technicality of what the wording on the annexation is, and we as a developer understand that there's things that we have to do to fix the problem. We are standing here today to tell you we're not going to take any steps further until we fix that problem. This thing has been a monster that we've dealt with for 22 months. We have worked with the City of Thompson Station countlessly hours. We've had meetings with the county. I got to give some disclosures. I am a county planning commissioner, so I do understand planning process. I want y'all to know that. The biggest thing is I got involved with this because it is in my back door. It's literally in my backyard. This property touches me on two sides. I knew Mr. Baker for a long time. He's been my neighbor for 16 years, and he and I have had great rapport with each other, and he's talked about selling his property for the last 4 or 5 years. We have put together a plan that has been approved by the City of Thompson Station. It has been approved by 2 public meetings, 4 regular meetings by their Planning Commission and their alderman. It passed either 5-0 or 4-1 every time. We have gone as far as bringing in the Placemakers company, which is the people who are doing the vision for Thompson Station for the next 10, 20, and 50 years. And they have signed off on this project and say it is a great project for our county. Yes, sir.
30 seconds.
30 seconds?
Sorry.
Okay. Real quick, the City of Thompson Station understands there may be a problem with some wording on the annexation. We understand it. The developer, the City of Thompson Station, and they have spoke with the Council of Williamson County, have all agreed that we can fix this problem. We're here to tell you today that we're going to fix this problem, and we would hope you'd vote this resolution down. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Hey, Paul, did you state your name and address
Oh, I'm
earlier?
sorry. Paul Pratt Jr., 3228 Baker Lane.
Okay.
Gary's neighbor.
All right. Thank you. Next we have George Dean.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. My name is George Dean. I'm an attorney from Nashville. Address is 315 Demumbrian Street in Nashville. I'm here also speaking against the resolution 171632. I've been retained by the group that's going to develop the property. And just wanted to make a couple of points in addition to Mr. Baker and Mr. Pratt. One was that in working through the process with the annexation, we've worked with the city authorities extensively, the city of Thompson Station, and we believe we've done everything correctly according to both state law and the local regulations there in Thompson Station. But we're willing to do more than that. Understand, I've talked to Mr. Mosley, the attorney for the county, about this, and understand that he had several concerns. We're willing to address those concerns. We've also gone back to the city of Thompson Station, told them, listen, the county's got concerns. We'd like to alleviate those so that even if we did it right the first time, which we think we did, we'll go back and make sure that it's been done properly. And really, that's why I'm speaking here today, just to assure the commissioners that even though we thought we did it right the first time, we're willing to take care of it, have a referendum to resolve all the issues. Any additional measures, we'll obviously have to work through the city on the zoning. Shouldn't be anything too terrible there because they've already looked at that. But this project will be done the right way, be done in cooperation with the city authorities. It may take us a little bit longer to reassure everybody as a result of some of the concerns that have been brought up. But again, we think that we'll be able to take care of those without any problem. We're going to go above and beyond the legal requirements, actually, to demonstrate both to the county and to the city that we've done everything appropriately. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Bill Carey.
Yes, my name is Bill Carey. I live at 6070 Bethany Boulevard, northwest part of the county. I'm not here to talk about the development that we've just heard three people talk about. Just real quick as an introduction, about 15 months ago I moved to Williamson County after 25 years of living in Nashville. The main reason was schools, and we've been very impressed with that, and we're very happy that we moved. And I also realize that there are more important topics in the world than anything will be discussed today, and that we just need to put in context with what's happened in Dallas, Baton Rouge, and otherwise in the United States. I thought of that as I drove down here today, thinking about what I was going to talk about. And the third thing I want to point out, because I'm sure some people, when they hear what I'm talking about, will say, maybe you're not patriotic. It's not that I'm not patriotic. I actually used to fly airplanes in the Navy, and so I do have patriotism running through my veins. But I really do believe, and this is after 2 years of living here, I've had people ask me, how do you love Williamson County? And I say, I love it, but I hate the week of the 4th of July. And they'll say, why? And I'll say, because fireworks. They start about 10 days before the 4th, and they go on to about 2 days after the 4th. I really do believe it's time for elected officials in this county, and if necessary in Tennessee, do something about it. When I was a kid, we would shoot off fireworks from about 8 p.m. until 1, maybe 11 p.m. that night, and we shot basically bottle rockets and sparklers and firecrackers. But now 4th of July is a 10-day holiday that includes each weekend before and after the 4th. These are no longer low-level fireworks. These are heavy explosives. These things are very loud. They're loud enough to wake up a small child inside a house with storm windows closed. And I know because I'm a person with a small child and storm windows closed. Some of them are loud enough to shake the windows. Some of them sound like gunfire. I've heard gunfire before. I used to live in East Nashville, and I hear gunfire at the time. And now I hear it again in Williamson County. I'm supposed to think it's cute and patriotic. I heard fireworks for 9 days this year. On the 4th of July, they went off until 2:45 in the morning at my house. So a week ago today, I was basically a walking zombie. And everywhere I went, I asked everyone else, and they told me the same thing, that they hate the fireworks on the 4th of July in Williamson County. They said this at the bank, at the post office, and it's just one of those things. And those people who have, and I have not mentioned people who have dogs. People who have pets lose a lot of them on the 4th because the pets freak out and take off running. In any case, I know I have 3 minutes, so I just want to summarize by saying I would really like this body to consider more restrictive ordinances related to the firing and the sale of fireworks. I want to point out that a week ago today, I stopped at 2 of the fireworks displays in Grassland, and they were selling like crazy because they were putting everything on sale, which is why we've had a lot of fireworks since the 4th. So as long as they're sold and sold for sale for half price the day after the 4th, we're going to have this problem. If I would like you to please consider communicating the existing ordinance better to police, law enforcement. The law enforcement does a wonderful job here, but every time I call, they give me a different answer about whether it's legal or illegal. 30 seconds?
30 seconds.
And then if it turns out that it is absolutely prohibited from the General Assembly that under state law we can't restrict fireworks, perhaps this very powerful county could consider asking the General Assembly to authorize it. I'm sure there's parts of suburban Memphis, suburban Knoxville where they're having similar problems. In any case, I thank you for the work that you do, and if anyone would like to contact me, my number is on the record, but it's 477-1644.
Thank you.
And thank you for allowing me to speak.
Next, we have Ann Getz.
Hello, I'm Ann Getzey at 4080 Carters Creek Pike in Franklin. I live very close to what the mass development proposed will be. As a citizen and a resident, I would just like to say to you this morning what has been said at all of the meetings at Thompson Station about mass development and the proposed 2 farms. It is not sustainable. At every level, it is not. I ask that you consider the whole of this. Remember the past. Consider the future, for it forms our present. And we know that if we take care of the land, that the land will take care of us, all of us. To live locally with wisdom is to think globally also with wisdom. I would just like to quote Greg Walton when he spoke about the integrity of the ecosystem. It is like dying the death of 1,000 cuts. It may not appear 1 or 2 developments, might not cause damaging harm, but over time, as developments are placed on the landscape, there will come a time when the ecosystem loses its ability to function as it was intended. So I therefore support the county in taking legal action against the improper annexation. Improper annexation at any level it just opens up land grabs. So that's really all I have to say, and I thank you for your time and your attention.
And thank you.
Thank you. Oh, also, I have a large stack here of petitions and comments. There's over 700 for now that I've gathered, but I don't know who to give them to, but this is all in opposition.
Jeff, right there to your right.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Laura Turner. I want to remind everybody we have 3 minutes to speak.
Laura Turner, 1108 Dickinson Lane, Franklin. Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. I know you have a long day ahead, so I will be brief. I'm hoping that the new tax rate you will be approving will be closer to 2.0 than the 2.15. I'm sure other taxpayers would agree with me. Williamson County has a growth issue. Uncontrolled growth is the code of a cancer cell. Overdevelopment has been the death knell to many cities and counties who do not realize that less is more and bigger is not always better. Residential growth does not pay for itself. We, the taxpayers, pay for it. Developers continue to profit as we pay for the schools, fire stations, increased sheriff services, road improvements, and construction needed for the mega-density housing that is being built in our county. The recently approved Stevens Valley subdivision near the terminus of the Natchez Trace Parkway will replace the scenic view of the parkway with wall-to-wall houses. Due to the overwhelming traffic generated by this subdivision, developer Rochford has planned a turn lane from Sneed onto the old Natchez Trace, built in 1801 by United States soldiers. This will cause serious harm to her integrity, and this traffic pressure threatens the historic signature stone walls on both Sneed and Old Natchez. I know you've been hearing from county residents near the proposed 2 farms mega density subdivision. They have very valid concerns about the unsustainable growth on pastoral rural landscape with very little existing infrastructure. Not only can our county not bear this density burden, we are being forced to pay for it. I was grateful to learn that my commissioner, Todd Kestner, has organized a study committee which is currently working on the issue of residential development impact fees. This is long overdue. Developers do not pay anywhere close to the impact their dense housing has on our communities.
Laura, 30 seconds.
Okay. Before we know it,
Our county will have sacrificed its scenic, historic, and culturally significant landscapes. And as Joni Mitchell said, we will have paved over paradise, and we will be stuck in standstill traffic just trying to get out of the parking lot.
Thank you. Next, we have Pat Thomas.
Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. I'm not going to repeat some of the message that you have heard already. I would just like to speak to the group on behalf. I live in the Fernvale area in District Number 1, and it's a rural area. I'm representing not only myself, but we refer to our network as the Fernvale Community Group. We're larger than Fernvale. It's
Pat, would you state
I'm
your
sorry,
address?
Pat Thomas, 7491 Caney Fork Road.
Thank you.
The most beautiful road on the planet. If you ever get a chance to drive there, it really is beautiful. We've got a network of 140 families, and we're much larger than Fernvale. There's not much to Fernvale. It's basically rural families from all over Williamson County, and even including some of the rural areas of Davidson County. So I feel confident in speaking for those of us that treasure our rural landscape. We understand development's coming. It's here to stay. Nashville's growing. This is a good thing. It can be a good thing if we manage it properly. The concern that I'd like to raise to the group is with the annexation at Thompson Station, we feel that it's very important that we've got urban growth boundaries, we've got land use plans. We absolutely cannot just blow by those urban growth boundaries and land use plans, or we're going to be looking at big box stores, fast food chains, gas stations all over Williamson County, which is not necessary. We've got a great county. We've got 6 communities in this county. They have room for growth. We need to make sure the growth takes place within those boundaries, and then we can enjoy both urban and rural landscape in Williamson County, which is sustainable. This is what we're asking, is that we make sure that we work within the urban growth boundaries, work within the land use plans, we do it right, we don't let the developers drive what happens in Williamson County. And that's all that I only wanted to bring to this group today. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Next, we have Donna Clements, I'm sorry.
Good morning. My name is Donna Clements. I live at 504 Sandcastle Road in Franklin. I understand that the Planning Commission is sometimes faced with the dilemma of whether to allow a developer to develop land pursuant to existing zoning when it's clear the development will place an undue burden on existing infrastructure. We've seen a case in point with the recently approved concept plan for Stevens Valley. The Stevens Valley development will be built on an already overburdened and inadequate county road. The Planning Commission has already determined that this development will require a new fire station and allowed the developer to develop at a density that will take Sneed Road to the tipping point of needing to be 4-laned. Meanwhile, the state has noted that the Sneed Road bridge already requires improvements, and the Highway Department has its own traffic study showing Sneed Road traffic to be higher than the traffic flow the Planning Commission considered when approving the mega density for Stevens Valley. In approving the Stevens Valley concept plan, the Planning Commission made a decision that will allow the developer to profit greatly at the great expense of Williamson County taxpayers, who will have to foot the bill for a fire station, eventual road work on Sneed to the tune of millions upon millions of dollars, and significantly hastening the need for new schools in northern Williamson County. It seems clear that the Planning Commission simply checked off a list with regard to whether the developer met zoning requirements and considered that checklist more important than the economical, cultural, historical fallout that all know will occur. In doing so, the Planning Commission put the developer's interests ahead of others. It is clearly evident that the Planning Commission acted in fear of being sued. When the Planning Commission feels it is more accountable to a single developer residing in Davidson County than to thousands of residents in Williamson County that will bear the economic burden of paying for the needed infrastructure, something is terribly wrong. If a decision like approving Stevens Valley is indicative of what is happening across the county, it's no wonder that the county has significant debt and is looking to pass that burden to the taxpayers by raising our property tax values by almost a third. Not all growth is good. Growth must be responsible and calculated to protect the economic interest of the citizens as well as the cultural and historical sensitivities of the land, which ultimately enhance property values and provide tourism dollars. As citizens, we need and expect our county commission to make fiscally prudent decisions rather than passing the buck of its unwise decisions to the taxpayers. We desperately need change. A starting point would be making the entire planning commission accountable to the public by vote and by opening up all the meetings to public comment. In the meantime, on behalf of the Williamson County taxpayers, I would ask that the tax rate be reduced significantly so that the recent property value increases will not result in unreasonably burdensome and unexpected property tax bills. Thank you for this opportunity to speak and for your consideration of these issues.
Thank you, Don. Next, we have Holly Rimmer or Fred Arnold.
My name is Fred Arnold, 775 High Point Ridge Road in Forest Home Farms. I don't have a prepared speech. I'm just a retired guy on fixed income. I've lived in this county for 40 years. And you build this big development down there in Stevens Valley, and everybody's going to go, and they're not going to be able to leave because you got a 2-lane highway on both ends of it, and you can't get on those roads now. The taxpayers are going to get the shuffle. I'm trying to be nice. We can't afford this. We can't afford the mess. The property values are going to go down when people come in here and see the mess that this development is going to cause. That's all I'm going to say.
Thank you. Next we have maybe Greg Sam.
Morning. For the record, my name's Greg Sassman, S-A-S-S-M-A-N.
I'm sorry.
Everybody does it. Call me George.
Okay.
3003 Blossom Trail Lane, Franklin, Tennessee. I'm here to strongly ask for the commission to vote for resolution number 71632 to allow the mayor to initiate legal proceedings. You've heard from other speakers, so I won't try and be repetitive. Attorney Dean represented that there are some problems, simple wording problems. We'll take care of it. There are others in the community, including myself, as well as Attorney Mosley, who feel that it's a little more than wording problems. And in fact, they're turning to the referendum process, which simply states what was passed through the city of Thompson Station is invalid. Two things that I would ask to point out. First being, we have a series of laws, as you know, Public Act 1998, Chapter 1101, as amended, proposed for a comprehensive growth planning policy, i.e. growth plan, in each county. Williamson County did that as well. In making that growth plan, there was use of what was known as a coordinating committee. Coordinating committee is a very vast number of agencies, people, schools, districts, you name it. Nobody wants to go back to the coordinating committee. Everybody tries to get around from that. In the coordinating committee plan, the growth plan, there's a thing called unified growth boundary. You've heard about that. That's preset. That's a line. That's a graphic on a piece of paper. That's to guide annexation for the next 20 years kind of attitude. Cities have authority to annex within the urban growth boundary, but to go outside the urban growth boundary took another step. That step was to reconvene the coordinating committee, submit their proposed change amendment to the urban growth boundary, and get a recommendation, get approval. Long, expensive, time-consuming process. There was an exception passed through the legislature in 2014 for a specific piece of property where somebody had one piece, they wanted their next piece above the UGB to be in. Very narrow set of circumstances. That does not apply in this case, and you will hear, as you've heard from Attorney Mosley, he was quoted in the Williamson Herald saying, we don't agree that that is correct, what was happening in Thompson Station. So I know I'm almost on 30 seconds. I'm happy to answer any questions. As you well know, TCA 68, 56, 58, 11, 111C1 was the guiding rule. Basically, for a municipality annexing outside its urban growth boundary, reconvene the coordinating committee. Supreme Court case, City of Harriman v. Rowan's County Election Commission, trying to hurry, sorry. 2011 case, in other words, same thing said. Supreme Court, Tennessee said, any changes in the urban growth boundary require the approval of a reconvened coordinating committee. If you look to the exception in this case, it fails. What's the next step? For Thompson Station to go above the UGB, go back to what is already in law. They did not. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Sasson, would you state your address again?
Yeah, sure. 3003 Blossom Trail Lane. Okay. Brand new, not even on GPS. Mailman can't find me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This concludes citizens' communication. So next we'll move on to communications and messages. We have a late file resolution today, 7/16/33. It's on the agenda, and it's at the end of appropriations. So if there's no objections, we'll hear that there. Yes.
Can we, given that there are people here from the public who are interested in the Thompson Station annexation, that resolution is, I think, at the end of our packet. Can we move that up to the beginning so that we can let them get out of here at the right time when we begin?
Sure. Okay, wait just a minute. Any objections on 7/16/33? It should be in your packet. It's at the end of appropriations. Okay, now moving on to Commissioner Kestner's motion. He would like to move 7/16/31 to the front. Are there any objections to that?
Is it 31 or 32, sir?
32, I'm
32.
sorry. So if there be no objections, we'll move that to the front. So we're good there. Also, today at 11:30, we will adjourn for lunch. Recess, I'm sorry. Diane has arranged for a trolley to be outside the door here, so we'll all ride together. We're looking forward to a trolley ride, and we're going over to the Public Safety Building for lunch, which is a fantastic new building, and so that's approximately 11:30. Yeah, and that's, I'm sorry, that's just for county commissioners and
Based on size.
yeah, based on size of the trolley. Also, I'd like to thank Commissioner Clark for the purple cystic fibrosis ribbons that were at your desk today, and that's in remembrance of Miss Dwight Jones. So thank you, Commissioner Clark, for that. Also like to thank Commissioner Ricky Jones and Mayor Anderson for the donuts. So when you weigh tomorrow, you can thank them. Also, on a personal note, when I say I'm glad to be here, I am glad to be here. With health issues I've had during the last month, and I did have a massive heart attack, and it's just a miracle that I'm here. I appreciate all the calls and the cards, and especially the prayers. It's given me a new perspective. I didn't see it coming, and that was just came out of the blue, and I appreciate the doctors and everything that basically saved my life. So I'm glad to be here. All right, Commissioner Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and first and foremost, we're glad you're here too. I know that you were certainly in our prayers, and couldn't imagine this commission without you. So we're I think I speak for everybody that we're very happy that you're here with us today.
Thank you.
As we're going through moving resolutions around, I'd like to make a motion to move resolutions 7, 716.2 and 716.3 ahead of 716.1. It seems it's backwards, in my opinion, Mr. Chairman, as far as before we can begin approving financing levels for these different funds, we're going to need to know what our tax rate's going to be. So I'd make a motion to have 716.2, 716.3 moved in front of 716.1, please.
Second.
A proper motion and second. Do we need to load this, or is there any discussion? Also, if there's two objections, that would defeat.
I object.
I object
All right.
also. I think really they're simultaneous, and so I would object also.
Okay, all right. Commissioner Danner?
So we've had two objections. Do we have a vote on it?
No.
All right. Well, since you let me speak, it failed, but I want the public to understand what Commissioner Ryan was trying to do. I brought the same thing up in Budget Committee. The same thing happened in 2011 when there was a tax rate increase, and that is we're getting ready to vote on the budget section by section that has the tax increase already baked in. And so we do that, apparently, according to this agenda, before we vote on a tax rate. And so it is, I think, to 99.9% of the people watching this and hearing this, it seems very presumptive. It's presuming that we are going to pass the tax increase. And I can guarantee you, not all of us are going to vote for that tax increase. And so that is why we were trying to get this right. We attempted this in 2011. It really makes sense to vote on the tax rate first and then the budget, instead of voting on a budget that's already got a tax increase pre-baked. So I wish that the two objections weren't so and didn't object, because maybe one time we'll get this right so the public will understand that we're voting on the tax increase first and then the budget. Makes common sense to me.
All right. Commissioner Webb?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What Commissioner Danner brought up at the budget meeting last week has had me thinking about that, and so I want to respond that in my years in public service and in business, before we put a product out, we tried to find out what the cost was. So we gathered all of our expenses, decided if we were going to bid on that job or sell that project, and also set the revenue. And so as I thought through this, I thought I'd add my part. From a business perspective, we have the opportunity to reduce our costs before we go through and set the tax rate. So I want to look at all the options that we've got here. We have it in front of us. As the attorney said the other day, it's almost half a dozen, 1/6 the other. But I would, after further thought, say no. I want to look at the expenses first, see what we've got, see what we can change, and then at the same time look at what our tax rate is going to be. If we debate the tax rate, then we don't know what we're going to cut. We just know we've got to cut something if the rate is lower than what's been recommended by the Budget Committee. But I do say that, from a business perspective, you've got to find out what your product costs. Before you bid a job, you've got to know what your costs are, because you don't want to bid a losing job. So I don't think it's out of the ordinary to figure out our cost and budget our cost and line item the cost and discuss that before we decide what we're going to price that product or if we were going to make that bid. Now, I'm coming at that from my perspective as a CPA, being in the construction business and the nonprofit business for now 30 some odd years. So the idea of setting the revenue first and then figuring out your expenses second is not something that I've done. So I'll offer that to the board and to the citizens, that let's figure out what our costs are. Then we can figure out a revenue to cover our cost. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any other discussion? I see none. Next, we have a proclamation by Commissioner Rogers Anderson. I'm sorry, County Mayor Rogers Anderson.
Either promoted or demoted.
Yeah, I'm sorry I promoted you. So.
Thank you, Jack. If I could have Mark McMillen come up. Many of you know Mark and his hard work he puts throughout the county. But recently, he was named the codes official for the state of Tennessee. He does an outstanding job, so we have prepared a resolution, and I would like to read parts of that. Mark's a lifelong Williamson County resident, graduated from Franklin High School, and he served in the United States Marine Corps. He began his building code employment with the city of Brentwood in 1984, and he has been the building inspector for Williamson County since July the 1st, 1991. Mark began reaching out to builders in an effort to have an open line of communication with the building community and government officials, and a result of his passion for the building industry in an effort to stay on the forefront of new codes and building techniques. Mark was one of the first codes officials asked to speak at the Middle Tennessee Home Builders Association. In '93, Mark was named the director of the codes for Williamson County, and he served on variety and numerous and various different committees throughout our county and throughout the state. So just recently, the Tennessee Building Officials Association chose Mark through his peers to be the codes official of the entire year. So we're all proud of him. His proudest accomplishment is his son, who's at Tennessee Tech. And I want to personally express my appreciation for the hard work that not only Mark does, but all of our men and women do in building and working with our building community. So would you join me in thanking Mark for his accomplishments?
I would like to thank Mayor Anderson and the commission for this. It means a lot after 30 years in a business where in this profession you don't get many accolades for it's building code enforcement is a tough thing. So I really appreciate it, but it's not just me, it's the team of people that I have, my staff that works with me, and I'd like to recognize them. The backbone of the staff is Miss Lisa Hobgood and Miss Bonnie Crutcher, who they're in charge of collecting all the impact fees and everything that's brought in by the growth of the county, as well as my chief inspector, George King, Kevin Adair, Larry McCoy, and David Harwell. They're just as much a part of this as anything, and I just want to say that that we are a team, and I think we work well together to, you know, try to make things good for the citizens of the county. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, now moving on, reports of county offices. County Mayor Rogers Anderson.
Mr. Chairman, I'll answer any questions you have, but as you know, Nina Graham will be up here in just a few minutes to address the first resolution, to address all of the expenditures that are there, but I'll address any questions. Rather than her normally coming up and giving a snapshot of the county, we'll wait and hold her at that time unless you have questions.
All right, any questions for the mayor? I see none. Thank you. Next, we have Dr. Mike Looney, Director of Williamson County Schools.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Good to see everybody. Obviously, it's summertime. We're in the process of recruiting and hiring personnel. A couple of quick updates. The scheduled open houses for Nolensville High School, Mill Creek Elementary and Middle School are on target and on schedule. We have received permission to occupy those two facilities. Pleased to report that we're building both of those facilities within budget, slightly below the budget that we had received, and are really happy with those projects. We have begun working a little bit more diligently on the Thompson Station property. We actually bid that project out. It came in a little bit more than what any of us expected, and so I've directed my staff to go back and figure out how to cut some expenses. So we'll be bringing that to you sometime probably in September. In addition, I'd like to invite all of you to our annual Infothon, which is held at the Cool Springs Mall on July the 30th from 10 to 4, and we'd love to see you out there. Be glad to answer any additional questions that you may have. I would ask that as you contemplate the budget proposal that you look on the school district's budget favorably. As you know, we're growing by more than 1,800 students in the upcoming year.
Dr. Looney, we're having a grand opening or an event, opening event on the Nolensville schools. Is that July 27th?
Hang on just one second.
I'm going from memory, and that's not a good thing.
It is actually the 24th of July.
24th, okay.
At 2 p.m.
I just wanted to make sure
Yes, sir.
all the commissioners knew that. Thank you. Are there any questions for Dr. Looney? I see none. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any other county offices wishing to report at this time? What? Okay. Paul, did you want to speak, or?
Thank you, Commissioners. Good morning. I'm Paul Walton. I'm the Chief Financial Officer of Williamson Medical Center. And we just wanted to give a little update. Things are going well. We finished the May financials, and net income exceeded budget. And our debt coverage ratio is well within our commitment to Williamson County government. A few other things going on. In the name of quality care, the hospital is pursuing certifications with the Joint Commission to be a center of excellence for cancer, stroke, and spine. Those are all fairly big things. It's going well. We expect to meet all of those. The hospital has been very busy, busier than usual for this time of year. I think I told you previously the breast health center is open. That's gone well and been very well received by the community, and is at near capacity. So, any questions I might answer?
Commissioner Kestner?
Sir, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Excuse me. There's a handout that I have disseminated and everybody has a copy of, you should, called handout number 1. And in our last meeting in June, I expressed my heartfelt appreciation for Paul Boland helping me get some better financials that would help us all understand what's going on at the hospital. And I complimented him and thanked him, and he looked a little bit uncomfortable, and I was wondering why did he look a little uncomfortable. And I got home that evening and found a letter from Don Webb, the CEO, which you also have a copy of, the last page of this. But basically, we get the first page of numbers, this little highlights thing that's a half a page of numbers that's pretty sketchy in the sense of just very brief. I don't think it lets us understand what's going on at the hospital or gives us a sense of trend or anything. And so I'd asked Paul, can we put together something that's a little more formidable? And and he had presented to me the ensuing 7 or 8 pages that you see there, which showed for the first quarter of March, cash balances and how cash changes, and a balance sheet, which I find to be very important to look at. And then importantly, some notes as to variances, which is very informative. And then lastly, a monthly trend statement of actual versus budget on admissions and certain procedures and things. And so I thought that was great. And then I go home that's very evening and find this letter from Don Webb that basically tells me to go pound sand. That I shouldn't be entitled to this kind of information, and that if this information were to get out, it would put the hospital at a competitive disadvantage in negotiating with accountable care organizations, which I fundamentally do not believe. So, if CEO Webb had wanted to irritate me, he probably couldn't have found a better way to do it than to send me this letter. I think that the legislative body of the entity that owns the hospital is entitled to decent information, and that's all I was seeking. You have an example of what I consider to be decent information and what Paul thought was decent information at one time, and the question is, what are we going to accept and what are we going to not accept? We are at risk. The taxpayers are at risk for the finances of the hospital. We have general obligation bonds that are outstanding, and if the hospital were to ever default, which I don't think they will, the taxpayer, although I say that in today's economy, in today's healthcare economy, we're at risk, and the taxpayers own that hospital, and I think that decent information is imperative. So I'll be following up with CEO Webb about his letter and about how I don't think it meets the spirit of our relationship in any fashion. But I want you to have this information. And Paul, I thank you very much for your involvement. I'm not here to pound on you. Thank you.
Commissioner Little?
Mine is not about hospital.
Okay, well, we'll come back to you. Commissioner Danner?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you also, Paul, for bravely attending these meetings. But I think many of us take it very seriously that we own this hospital. And so we're looking for accountability in several ways. I had a conversation last night with a constituent that I had not met before, who has extensive experience in hospital administration. He may be putting a call into your boss. I told him he didn't need to because I was going to ask you here today.
Okay.
But regarding the Children's Hospital and the services that you offer and that you don't offer, I was, I'm still disturbed with the fact that my across the street neighbor almost died because he was turned away at the Williamson Hospital, Children's Hospital, and sent to the Vanderbilt Children's Hospital because of his because of a pediatric appendectomy, and his appendix burst on that excursion down to the other hospital. He said, my neighbor suggested that I ask you, because I'm looking for a way to warn parents, of what you may offer at the Children's Hospital and what you may not, because you did admit that you don't have all the pediatric specialists that they have at the downtown Children's Hospital, even though you share the same branding of Vanderbilt Monroe Carroll. So he said, and so I wanted to ask you, what are you doing from the Children's Hospital standpoint in terms of informing the first responders of the services that you offer and the services that you may not offer and may turn them away? And so he said that's the place. The first responders need to know, that you don't have a surgeon that'll do an appendectomy on a child in the middle of the night, so that they don't waste that child's time and risk that child's life, and just take them straight down to the Vanderbilt Children's Hospital in Nashville. So my question to you is, what are you doing? What could you do to help inform the first responders?
Thanks, Commissioner Danner. The first responders are informed, and I'll have to get more information about it, but that doesn't just apply to pediatrics. That happens with adults as well. We're not a tertiary hospital. We don't do open heart. We don't do neurosurgery, so they're well aware, the first responders are, of what services we offer and don't offer, and will make their best decision based on, and they've been briefed on it, and I'll get the details of that, of what's not available at Williamson and what should be sent to a tertiary hospital.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Lawrence?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Boland, thank you for being here again today. I want to echo Commissioner Kastner's comments. I appreciated very much getting this information, and I found this very informative in many ways, and also concerning in some ways. And I just want to ask you, my first question, if you could explain to the Commission what meaningful use payment is, a meaningful use incentive payment is.
Yes, that is part of the Healthcare Reform Act, and this is something that's happening with all the acute care hospitals across the country. If you put in an electronic health record and use it in a meaningful way, you're eligible for incentive payments from the Center for Medicare Services. In later stages of meaningful use, if you have not met those meaningful use metrics, you can actually be penalized. You'll have a reduced payment. So it's pretty important that hospitals move to that electronic health record and use it in the way the government sees as meaningful.
Okay, and I just want to emphasize that's basically just a one-time payment, and basically in the form of a rebate, correct, for purchasing that electronic software?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Were there any more meaningful use payments in fiscal year 2016?
I'm not sure.
We had $1 million in March on this record.
Yeah, that's all there was in fiscal 16.
That's all. Okay. What about 15?
There was a payment in 15 as well.
Since July of 15 or before July of 15?
Before.
Okay. So that won't show up on this year's fiscal.
That's correct.
Okay. So $1 million in March, and that's a one-time payment. So here's my concern. I looked at the numbers since January, and the profit margins seem to be declining pretty significantly since January. And in fact, if you do the math on it, I took out the meaningful use payments because I knew what that was, because I'm very familiar with Obamacare and what that meaningful use meant. I just wanted you to explain that to the Commission, because it is a one-time payment. It's not really what I would consider operating income. So if you take that money out from January to May, profit margin's going down about 2%, a little bit north of that. So the profits have declined dramatically since you've opened up the new facility. So, you know, in relation to Commissioner Kastner's comments about the possibility of the hospital losing money and putting the taxpayers at risk, what can you tell me about that, and how can you help me feel more comfortable with the financials right now?
Well, just watching the industry as a whole, profit margins have declined. That's happening in hospitals across the country. Our timing perhaps wasn't as good, that we brought on children's and all this additional surgery capacity and added many employees over the past year. So our expense structure has gone up considerably related to the new services we offer, but we do expect to grow into that.
So you expect the growth of new patient revenue to offset that going forward?
Yes, and I mean, unfortunately, we constantly look at our FTEs, our full-time equivalent employees, and we'll adjust that. We won't let profit margins sag to a point that it jeopardizes the hospital's financials.
Okay. One more comment I'd have is just I really did appreciate, especially the notes to the financial statement that was in this packet that Commissioner Kastner shared with us, and I would echo his comments as well, that this is important information that I would like to see every month from the hospital.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I will say that those are a board decision. That's not my decision. I will take your request to them.
Okay. Paul, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Little?
Yes, I wanted to, before we got into the budget, thank some people and make some statements about this year's budget from the Budget Committee. I want to thank all the elected officials and the department heads for the hard work they put into this budget. We gave them budget guidelines, and they came in and met the guidelines in almost every case. Early on in the process, we were asked by this commission, we felt we were asked by this commission to look at items that every year we have to go from fund balance and add into the budget. And we were asked to put those in on the front end instead of on the back end, i.e. health costs for the sheriff, additional mailing. Some of these things that we routinely have to add back into the budget every year, we looked at and put in the front instead of taking it out of fund balance at the end. In this process, nobody got everything they wanted, especially under capital. We looked at what we could afford, what we thought was essential, and this is what we put together as a funding package. We also, in putting this together, was looking at county needs down the road. What are we going to have? What are we going to have to do? And we took this into consideration. We took our AAA bond rating into consideration. And one of the requirements under the AAA bond rating is your willingness to fund your needs. And what we have put together in this budget is one of the things is to protect our AAA guidelines. And these are what we considered when we came up with this. Through all the committee meetings, and I have not attended all of the individual committee meetings, but all of the budget meetings, the joint education budget meetings, I only remember hearing of one proposal to cut any expenditures, and that proposal didn't pass. So during the whole process, we haven't received a lot of feedback to cut. This does not have a lot of fluff in it. This is the budget that we put together that we think is best for the future of the county. And I appreciate your consideration.
Thank you, Commissioner Little. All right. Next, we've got Dolores Greenwald with the library. Did you still want to speak, Dolores?
Good morning, everyone. We had a similar incident at the library recently. It was actually July the 3rd, around 2 o'clock, that the health department experienced. We had somebody run into the side of our building that the meeting room is on. So they actually ran into the door with their vehicle. And I just wanted to thank the various departments involved, the facilities department, Risk Management for coming together and helping us so quickly secure the building and getting it ready for repairs. So I just wanted to say, I know today's a busy day, but I just wanted to say thank you to the departments.
Thank you, Dolores. All right, any other reports of county offices? I see none, we'll move on. Next, we have elections and appointments. The first, we have Water and Wastewater Authority Finance Representative, 5-year term expiring 7/21. Term expiring Garland Teague. Nomination Garland Teague. Mr. Ford, Mr. Jones, the second. All in favor of Mr. Teague signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And he's confirmed. Next, we have Medical Examiner, 2-year term expiring 7/18. Term expiring Dr. Samuel A. Smith, MD. Nomination Dr. Samuel A. Smith, MD. Commissioner Smith and Alsbrooks. All in favor of Dr. Smith signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. Next, we have Library Board of Trustees, 3-year term expiring 6/19. Term expiring Lewis Green. Nomination Lewis Green. Commissioner Little, Commissioner Webb the second. All in favor of Commissioner Green signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. Now we're going to break and get in our groups, if you remember those, in paired districts. So District 1 and 2 will get together. District 3 and 4 will get together. District 5 and 6, District 7 and 8, 9 and 10, and 11 and 12. So we'll get together and do the standing committees, rules, steering, human resources, and parks and rec. So at this time, we'll not adjourn. About a 5-minute recess. We're going to start on the Rules Committee. So when I call on your group, hopefully you pick the spokesperson, and if you'll tell me who's on rules from District 1 and 2. Commissioner Milliken?
Yeah, he's on 3 and 4.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You jumped.
Oh, Commissioner Jones, I'm sorry. All right. Now 3 and 4. Matt on rules. 5 and District 5 and 6. All Webb. District 7 and 8. District 9 and 10. District 11 and 12. All right. Next we'll do steering. Commissioner, District 1 and 2. Districts 3 and 4. District 5 and 6. District 7 and 8. District 9 and 10. District 11 and 12. All right. Now we'll move on to Human Resources Committee, District 1 and 2. District 3 and 4. District 5 and 6. District 7 and 8. District 9 and 10. District 11 and 12. All right. And last but not least, Parks and Rec Committee, District. All right. District 2 and 3 and 4. District 5 and 6. District 7 and 8. All right. District 9 and 10. District 11 and 12. All right. Now we'll take these as a whole. The Rules Committee, we have Judy Herbert, Matt Milliken, Paul Webb, Jack Walton, David Landrum, and Brandon Ryan. A steering committee, we have Betsy Hester, Greg Lawrence, Lewis Green, Barb Sturgeon, Matt Williams, Brian Bethard. HR committee, we have Ricky Jones, Kathy Danner, Tommy Little, Bert Chalifant, Todd Kessner, and Dana Osbrooks. Parks and Rec, we have Dwight Jones, David Pear, Jeff Ford, Tom Bain, Sherry Clark, Steve Smith. So I'll entertain a motion for those. Commissioner Smith and Osbrooks. Voice vote? Yes. All in favor of those committees signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And they are confirmed. All right. Consent. Yes. Next we have the consent agenda, which I believe is only the notaries. Is that right? Yeah. So I'll entertain a motion for those. Second, Bain. If you're in favor of the consent agenda, push your yes button and confirm. Opposed, your no button and confirm. Anyone wishing to change their vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
Yes.
Thank you.
Commissioner Herbert abstaining.
It passed. Yeah. Okay. All right. Moving on. We're going to do Resolution 7/1632. Resolution authorizing the Williamson County Mayor to initiate legal proceedings to contest the annexation of property by Thompson Station outside of its urban growth boundary. Commissioner Kessner?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Let's move for approval first.
Move for approval.
Okay. Is there a second? Clark. Commissioner Clark's the second? Okay, Commissioner Kestner.
Thank you for guiding me through that. This really relates to a very technical section of Tennessee law that got amended in 2014 that, in my words, created a loophole by which municipalities can annex outside their urban growth boundaries. And I think what we have happening is unintended consequences from a change that was instituted by the legislature in order to address one parcel in East Tennessee owned by one guy who wanted to do one thing. And now here we go, there's a loophole, and people are diving through it. This issue is fascinating, it's complicated, and it's frustrating. It begs a question of, are we really going to let Thompson Station dictate our land use plan for the next 20 years? This is huge, folks. If this is allowed to stand, I think you can say goodbye to the unincorporated county, because municipalities will be able to string together contiguous parcels and annex, potentially you could annex a circle around Franklin if you're Thompson Station, or vice versa. It really renders the urban growth boundary concept completely meaningless, and I think that's a travesty. It renders our land use plan meaningless. I think that's a travesty. Our county ordinances are irrelevant. I went to every one of these meetings down in Thompson Station save one, and people were shocked, neighbors were shocked that they never had a vote, they never had a voice. Everybody told them, you're not a resident of Thompson Station, you don't get to vote on this, sit down and shut up. And then one day, they're next to a big development. This development, has, our zoning ordinances don't even apply if this stands. And so what's talked about down there are, commercial areas, apartments, hotels, rental properties, all sorts of things that sound, almost urban in nature. And I get that they would like to do that. And you know what? If they want to do that within their urban growth boundary, I'm cool with that. That's great. Do it all you want. That's what the urban growth boundary is about. When you start going outside the urban growth boundary, now you're taking land that's been in the county, and you're taking land from, the neighbors of which have never had a vote, have never had a say. And they look at me and they look at Sherry, because it's our district, and they say, where did our zoning protection go? What happened to it, and how do we get it back? This is a really serious issue. Now, we all got a letter from Todd Moore, who said, here's how we're going to fix it. Well, you know what? Maybe that works. That doesn't change anything today. That letter is designed to take the wind out of your sails to vote for opposing this. That's all it is. We're a nation of laws, unless you're Hillary Clinton, apparently, and we need to follow those laws. I don't think we get to just suspend them and say, well, the intent is basically the same, so the letter of the law doesn't matter. That's not right. I don't think we can allow that to happen. Interestingly, this may strike you this way. It struck me. This is the first time ever that this body, as a commission, has ever heard anything or garnered any respect from Thompson Station to even have people come in here and describe what they're talking about. Heretofore, they've said, it's our deal, we got the law, we got the loophole, go away, we don't want to talk to you. There's 7 people, the BOMA, Mr. Webb, Mr. Baker, the landowner. I get that he wants to sell his farm, and he will sell his farm, and ultimately it'll be developed into something. I understand that. The question is it going to be done in accordance with the technical requirements of real estate law and annexation laws? It needs to be. But we've also got those 7 people. We've got 700 people who are residents of the county who are opposed to this. Now, they're just taxpayers. What the heck, Who cares about them, right? But 700 people have signed this petition. And I don't have a crystal ball. Maybe we oppose this, and maybe some judge slaps us down and says, nah, don't worry about it, they did it right. That's fine. I'll live with that. We'll all live with that. That's the rule of law. We're a nation of laws. But to not contest this and to simply say, well, you sort of met the letter of the law, that's not good enough in my book at all. And to be honest with you, and I would vote for this tomorrow. I would rather that we buy the Baker farm for whatever he's got under contract for and turn it into a park. It will be cheaper to do that for the taxpayers of this county than to go out and build, $50 million worth of roads and $80 million worth of schools and suffer whatever else we're going to suffer. So this again, we have a comprehensive adopted county land use plan that was award-winning, I'm told, and it sets out what this county's vision for that part of the county is supposed to be, and what's happening here is completely 100% opposed antithetical to that vision. That bugs me. It ought to bug you. So, obviously, I'm pretty wound up about this. But I think I'm wound up about this because they didn't meet the requirements of the law, and everybody should be held to that standard. You know, whether a referendum vote by the single landowner who wants to be annexed solves the problem or not, we can't say. Whether they're really going to do all that, we can't say. If they're going to go ahead and pursue that course, what they're really doing is they're also admitting that everything they've done heretofore for the past 20 months or however long it's been has been invalid. Fine. Okay. Maybe the state legislature will close this loophole between now and the time that they ultimately get that done. I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. But I think to simply lay back and acquiesce and say, sure, do whatever you want, because you're 7 people and these other 700 taxpayers don't mean squat, that ain't right. So I obviously am passionate about this. I would implore that you authorize the mayor. And again, we don't even know the full extent of legal arguments that we might make. But we ought to at least figure those out rather than just roll over. Thank you.
Commissioner Beathard, would you like to speak to this?
I have a question, I guess, for council, if I may have Mr. Mosley maybe spell out for the commissioners and those in the audience what it is that you found wasn't done correctly and what specifically their letter says they will do, and your opinion on both.
We were asked to give an opinion as to whether or not the resolution annexing the property by consent, specifically the property outside the UGB, met the statutory requirements. My opinion was it did not, and there were 2 different issues. The statutes interact in such a way you can't look at one statute and say this is the end of the discussion. One statute allows for the modification of the UGB by either going through the comprehensive committee, or you can annex outside the UGB by referendum only, according to the statute. Another statute allows you to annex property outside the UGB if it meets certain requirements, 3 particular requirements. 1, owner, you've been providing services to it and it's contiguous to your current corporate boundaries. We found that those criteria were not met, in my opinion, to do it through that manner. And considering they had not done it by referendum, the consent did not seem to apply because the conditions were not met. It was my opinion that they had not met the statutory requirements for the annexation to date. The letter we received last week is that they've received a request from the owner, Mr. Baker, who you've heard from, who is the owner of the property outside the UGB, for a referendum for annexation. Whether or not that would meet the requirements of the statute to allow annexation, it appears on its face to do so. There is some argument, I will acknowledge, at least by some of the property owners adjoining it, that there might have been an amendment to that statute by implication. I don't necessarily agree with that, but it's out there. And Mr. Moore has stated that they will take up the request for referendum at its August meeting, and if they do agree to go through the referendum, that he will advise them as council not to take any action on the planning side until that referendum is completed, which will be approximately 60 days after that. And that's pretty much where we stand right now.
As a follow-up, how much time are they requesting to get those specific items done?
The letter does not contain a specific request. If you deferred action on this resolution, you do not have another meeting until September. So effectively, it would be a 60-day deferral.
And am I also correct in that the law allows this referendum to either be a referendum of the property owners themselves or a referendum of the citizens of Thompson Station?
The statute uses language that says it may be by the entire citizens of the municipality, in this case Thompson Station, and it also references a referendum by the impacted landowner, so it appears that Thompson Station has the choice as to what body would be voting on that.
I struggle immensely with this one because I have 2 passions that are in conflict. I have a passion for property rights owners, but that includes all owners, not just those who are selling their land, but those who will be affected and live around that land. I also have a passion for the beauty and the landscape of Williamson County, and I also, like everyone else in this room, hates traffic. So what I tried to do on this one, and I think maybe some of the other commissioners do as well, is try to look at the letter of the law, and then in some capacity search for ideas where we can curb growth within that letter of the law. I actually like Commissioner Kestner's idea of perhaps the county does buy certain properties from time to time. If we find that in doing so we preserve that which so many people moved here to be a part of. I'm going to make a motion that we defer this resolution for 60 days until our next commission meeting in September to see what steps Thompson Station, their board of mayor and aldermen, and the developers and their attorneys do towards the suggestions that our council has made. So I make that motion.
All right, proper motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Smith, the second. If I might add, if need be, we could always have a special called meeting to address this.
And I would add that into my motion.
Okay, all right. Any discussion on the motion? On the amendment, I'm sorry.
No, it's a motion to defer.
Motion to defer, so there's no discussion.
Right.
So,
No, you can discuss the deferment. You can discuss deferment. You can't discuss a motion to table.
okay.
But my thing was, it wasn't an amendment, it's a motion to defer.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, let's see. Commissioner Sturgeon, did you want to speak to the deferral?
What I understand is this resolution gives the county mayor the ability to initiate legal proceedings. It doesn't mean he has to do it. It doesn't say when he has to do it. So I'm very comfortable giving the mayor the authority to go ahead based on, and let him decide what Thompson Station is doing. And I don't really want to have to go into a special meeting or come back and talk about this later. I personally would rather give the mayor that authority.
All right. Mr. Kestner?
Completely with what Commissioner Sturgeon just said, and I would also suggest that sometimes the passage of time works in the favor of the counterparty, and we might lose the ability to contest depending on if we defer. So, these ideas that we defer things not having legal ramifications sometimes is wrong. So I again would say that we ought to go ahead and give the mayor the authority, let him seek counsel, let counsel advise him as to what timing is required and necessary in order to not lose our standing. And Barb's right. He's not compelled to file a declaratory action within 7 days. It will be up to him and Jeff and whoever he consults with. So I think the deferral is kind of meaningless.
If I may ask, Mr. Mosley, if it's deferred, do we have 60 days? I mean, could this transpire within 60 days?
Could what transpire?
I mean, the annexation that they've already done, would that?
There is no action by the town currently in force that delays their process for any planning or zoning changes or developmental actions. They have taken no effective action to stop that right now. You have heard representatives of the developer, et cetera, and the owner saying that they will hold off on that, but you don't have any legal action actually doing that yet. We've got the representation from the attorney that they'll take it up in August, but again, that would not preclude them from taking action at this point.
Okay, all right. Anyone else want to speak to the deferment? Commissioner Milliken?
For council, and thank you for your advice. And we have no guarantees or no way to stop them if they did move forward if we defer this. Is that correct?
You can challenge, we can get a declaratory judgment filed to take action after authorization. The question is, if they took actions between now and then, would that change the relative parties' rights? Could they claim we were stopped from doing so because we did not file it earlier and they took action relying on the fact that we did not? I can't tell you whether that's a valid argument or not, because I don't know what those actions would be or what the argument would be. That's possible. You would not have an authorization from this body to file if they did something prior to the September meeting. You'd have to call a special meeting in order to grant that authority.
It sounds like what we hear you saying is that the safest course of action would be not to defer, and that would probably be the safest course of action. Is that what I hear you saying?
It would certainly preserve the rights of the county if they were not to follow through with their public representations.
Thank you.
Commissioner Clark?
Thank you. I just wanted to add the concept of accountability. Allowing the mayor to have this authority keeps our level of accountability at the level it needs to be. So I highly recommend that we don't defer.
All right. Wait just a minute, Brian. Any other questions on the deferral? Commissioner Beathard?
The comments, I do recognize that council is going to say it's safer to proceed with this resolution. I don't know that it's the most communal, though. I am one of those who don't really like lawsuits. I don't specifically like them when it's government entities within the same county suing each other. I believe it would be foolish on the part of the developers not to pursue the promises that they have made here today and in that letter that they sent our council. I'm willing in this case to trust that they will, and with the caveat that we can call a special meeting, still ask that this body supports the deferral until September.
All right. Any other discussion on the deferral? Yeah. Motion to defer for 60 days or until special call meeting. Is that correct, Brian? Okay. Ready to vote? If you're in favor of the deferral of Resolution 7-1632, push your yes button. Opposed, your no button. Anyone wishing to change their vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
5 yes, 17 no.
All right. Deferral fails. Next sponsor is Commissioner Jeff Ford. Do you have anything to add?
Commissioner Kestner said a lot of what I wanted to say. My district is contained completely inside of Brentwood. So on one hand, we don't have a dog in that fight. But what happens in every part of the county affects every other part of the county. And even though I'm elected by the people of Brentwood, I represent the entire county and recognize the beauty and value that the more rural areas bring to this county and how they support those urban growth boundaries. And my main interest here is making sure that we're following the letter of the law. So I fully support this option.
All right. Commissioner Herbert, do you have anything to add?
I'm very much like Ron Beathard. You know, I believe in property owners' rights, but also I don't believe in going beyond the urban growth boundaries, and that's, you know, that's what we're really looking at, is them going beyond the urban growth boundaries, and it's not whether it's okay to build there or not okay.
Okay.
That's all I want to make.
Commissioner Clark, you have anything to add?
No, sir.
Okay.
I did.
All right. One thing I missed earlier is the Budget Committee report. Okay, all right, thank you. Now moving on, Commissioner Little.
All my questions, I think, have been answered.
Okay, all right, thank you. Commissioner Lawrence.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be brief here. I don't want to say what's been said, but I want to add that I was on the Citizens Committee several years ago that put together the land use plan. We worked very hard on that. We spent a lot of time putting together the land use plan, and it involved a lot of discussion from the community. And the overwhelming thing that we kept hearing from people when we went to those meetings was that we don't want to become like Atlanta. Whatever we want to be, we don't want to be Atlanta, because there's a stigma to some of those counties around, like Cobb County, Georgia, around Atlanta, where they have allowed cities to go and annex large chunks of land and without, I guess, a land use plan of the type that we had. And so I am also very much in agreement with Commissioner Beathard about property owners' rights and the developers. Let's face it, we all live, most of us live in a piece of property that was developed by somebody. So we need developers in this community. I just hope that they would be able to develop this land without annexing and develop it within the confines of the land use plan, because if Compton Station can do it, then Spring Hill can do it, and if Franklin can do it, and then there's the land use plan that we spent so much time working on would be practically worthless.
All right. Commissioner Osbrooks?
Thank you. I've got a question for council. I know that was stated that there could be a referendum, and we've heard from Thompson Station's attorney that he's going to recommend that they have one. I know you stated there could be two different parties who participated, either the landowners themselves or the municipality. Has there been any indication as to who would be voting in the referendum?
We've not received any indication of that.
Okay. Commissioner Danner?
Mr. Chairman, my question is for the mayor, and I'm sorry, Mayor, to put you on the spot, but there was a comment made by the landowner, I believe, the first speaker. I would like to avoid a lawsuit. I fully support Commissioner Kestner's resolution, though, because it invalidates the land use plan, and we really can't set that precedent. But if we vote for this and we give the mayor the authority that he needs, it was mentioned by the first speaker that one mayor could just call the other mayor and work it out without a lawsuit, and I'd like to get the mayor's input.
Commissioner, I think to address the question, I'm going to have to go back to legal and define the definition, because you've got one side of the issue here with a lot of the people that spoke that do not want to change the area, but I think it's imperative that we understand when we leave here this morning that the area, as Mr. Kestner has said, the area inside the urban growth boundaries could be done without a lot of discord. I think all of us should understand that has already been defined by the state law, and they can annex that. The question here is outside of that urban growth boundary, and which we asked legal counsel to make a determination, and he came back, and that's why it's at your desk, to get the attention of the legislative bodies of Thompson Station and say, let's dot the I's and cross the T's, let's get this right. So you've heard some of their legal counsel, you've heard Mr. Baker come up here this morning, you've heard other individuals that say they're going to do that. I'm not sure what that means. And so that's where I've got to go with Jeff, legal counsel here, because yes, I could call the mayor of Thompson Station and say, will you fix it? And is fixing it mean get the paperwork right on the annexation? And then the question, as Jeff has so purposely said, he's not real sure if the annexation occurs with just the landowners. If it's just the landowners, I suspect I know the outcome of that vote before you have it. That doesn't take Philadelphia lawyer to figure that one out. Now the question is, and it would be pushed, are some of these other subtle but very impelling issues, what does this allow us to do as we go down this road of history? And until we can get that defined, I'm not sure I can answer that. But I can call Corey or the mayor and have this discussion, but I've got to ask Jeff exactly how will that be? Because I just can't in good faith, as I said here, I don't like suing cities either. I'm like all of us here. But it definitely got their attention since last week when that paperwork was filed on Monday morning. And it's pretty compelling to me that regardless of what legal counsel says, there's something not right, or they wouldn't be all here this morning trying to get it fixed. I'm pretty slow, but I picked up on that real quick. And number three is, I don't want the people to leave here thinking you're going to stop annexation growth in Thompson Station. That's not going to happen here. What's happening is outside those lines. I think the world of what Mr. Baker has done for our community, and I think the world of Paul Pratt and what he's done for our community in helping develop it. The issue here is like some of the ladies in the back have said, what happens to Leapers Fork? What happens to Ferndale and the other community, the other parts? Because we do represent, as my Brentwood counterpart here, and all points in between, and this is a heck of an area in which we live. And as much as I would like to buy the land you two gentlemen are talking about, you're going to have a whole bunch of say-so on that in a few more minutes on taxes. So, can I answer your question? I went around the mulberry. Jeff, you're going to have to tell me, what's the discussion we're going to have? Is it about them annexing? I guarantee you I know how the Baker vote will be if they annex that. I would just be willing to bet my next paycheck I know the outcome of this election.
It's difficult to give a legal opinion on hypothetical facts. I mean, that's the big problem. If the question is, will we advise you to sue if they have annexed the property in a legally compliant manner, I'm hard-pressed to say that we will advise you to sue in those circumstances. What those circumstances mean are factually based. So if they go through the things they have to go through from a legal standpoint, and that's our opinion, that's the opinion we will give you. I won't give you an opinion to file a lawsuit that we do not believe we can win. I can't do that ethically, and I won't do that ethically.
So if I could follow back up with you, I will, if you direct me to if you vote in the affirmative for this, then I will make phone calls. I'm going to make phone calls either way, and I already have. Once we got the resolution filed, I made a phone call to that mayor because I have to work with him on many, many issues. But I also support, let's get it right, and you all, the 22 of you are here today, notwithstanding, and I want to repeat, because Todd and I don't always see eye to eye on things, believe it or not. But that's okay. But I will say one thing. You gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, did not create this problem. And you need to remember that. This was not created by you. But by the same token, the growth we've enjoyed here, the low unemployment, and all of these different issues that go into our community have been resulting of people moving in. If I asked everyone to show of hands that actually were born and raised here, it would be very small. So we're all the problem. We've all moved here. But we do need to learn how to get along. But I hear what Todd is saying. I'm very concerned about those unincorporated areas, Kathy. Very concerned as we go down the road. And I think PJ, I think Mr. Baker can figure out a way to handle this piece of property, but it's the next piece of property. Yeah. Or we'll be back here every single month.
All right. Good. Commissioner Smith?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Beathard said a number of things I wanted to say. Having been a planning commissioner in the past during the development of Chapter 1101, and also involved in zoning ordinances and land use plans, I understand those plans typically are always catching up to new projects that are coming in. You see things you didn't expect, going places you didn't expect. That's always a difficult thing from a planning commission standpoint. You know, there are a couple of issues regarding this process. One is the legal issue involving the urban growth boundary. The other is just opposition to this particular development. You know, I share the concerns of Commissioner Beathard of suing a sister municipality with duly elected representatives, including mayor, board of aldermen. And I would just, I can't support that. I would like to see a better way of approaching this. Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Williams?
Yeah, I pressed my button quite a while ago, but just for clarification, how many acres of this property is outside of the boundary?
I don't know the answer to that.
So it's, of the 2,000 acres total, about 1,000 of it is in the unincorporated county. You know, honestly, I'm gonna support this resolution. I see it as insurance to make sure that they're doing legally and they're being legally compliant. You know, I have concerns about the referendum and the way that they're going to conduct that. You know, if it's just the owners of the properties being involved with it, to me, that doesn't sit right. To me, it seems like it should be involving all the members of that municipality down there. And it would also show goodwill from the developers that it reflects the desires of that community. But I'll leave it at that.
Commissioner Sturgeon?
Yeah, thank you. I have 3 ideas. I pushed my button a long time ago, so that helped me come up with some more. But the first thing I'd like to say, I said this at the Budget Committee. I was at the meeting where they annexed this land, and when I was asked by BOMA, why are you here? This isn't in your jurisdiction. This, as a county commissioner, you don't have any say here. That's what I was told. So I'm all for giving the mayor the authority to initiate legal proceedings if only it brings everyone to the table and that it resolves this conflict more quickly. I'd also like someone to explain clearly why annexing this land by Thompson Station is imperative for developing the land. Why can't this land be developed in the unincorporated county? Would you like to ask the builder?
I don't know anybody
Can we
here that can answer that. Typically, there's more density in the cities that in their planning than it is
Well,
in the county.
we have Stevens Valley. It's entirely in the unincorporated county. So I mean, it's all about this resolution's all about improper annexation outside of the urban growth boundary. I'd like to understand why it's such an important feature of this development. Perhaps Mr. Baker could explain.
Is it all right? Does the commission want to hear from Mr. Baker? All right.
Gladly. Thank you for the opportunity. And point of clarification, the farm, Eagles Rest, is 693 acres, is the amount of acreage we are discussing here. As to the question of the reason for annexation, well, the main reason, I guess, the reason I was thrilled when these folks came along with this plan, as far I'm looking at probably, as we've already heard, the most beautiful road in the county. I'll tell you the most beautiful farm in the county is Eagles Rest Farm. I am concerned about the legacy that Eagles Rest Farm is left, what my children and grandchildren are going to look at. There's where my concern is for this county. When they came with this plan versus the other plans that were presented to me, and I saw the density that was there, frankly, I'll tell you, I was mortified. I just did not want to see that many houses. Well, when they come at us with this plan, so far fewer rooftops on it, and instead this golf course, if it was incorporated into the town of Thompson Station.
So you're saying Thompson Station requires a less dense?
No, ma'am.
Because my question, I'd like to be specific. Why is it so imperative that Thompson Station annex this land before it's developed versus in leaving it in unincorporated county?
I will answer that in generalities, and then I'll turn.
Well, maybe
turn the floor.
maybe Mr. Pratt could answer it.
I'm going to turn it over to him, but basically it's a matter of green space. That the golf course is part of the green space requirement, but the fact is their plan provides for so far fewer rooftops on this farm. And to me, that's the beauty.
That's a different point. Respectfully, that's a different point.
It's a different point, but the question is, and what this body has to decide, we're facing alternative A or B. That's what we're facing. I wish to goodness there was
So
a C.
if it's not annexed, will it still be developed?
Yes, ma'am. And in a way that I do not want to see, but must see. I am Williamson County. I've mentioned in the letter, all the way back to covered wagon days, I am a believer in this county. I want what's best for this county, and this plan is so much better for this county than the alternative. And yes, ma'am, I do already have the contract on my desk. It's ready to sign at the snap of a finger, and I do not want to sign it because it is a lot more rooftops than we're talking about with this plan.
It was my understanding that the density that would be required by the unincorporated county is lower than Thompson Station.
No, ma'am, that's inaccurate. Mine was one house per acre. Theoretically, you put 690
What is
houses on
Thompson
it.
Station's required density?
I don't even know what it, but a lot. It's a lot better for the county than what we have. Okay. That's why we're just A or B. I wish to goodness we could keep this farm as a continuing horse farm, cattle, something farm, but it can't be done.
I appreciate your email yesterday. That was very helpful.
I want
that in the email.
I want you to be able to have the information necessary to make an intelligent decision. Yes, ma'am. That's my total purpose of that, and speaking to you now. Okay. What's good for this county? Ms. Pratt, if you
don't mind. I just want to know why it's imperative that Thompson Station annex this land outside of the growth boundary.
Gary's farm right now is zoned rural development 1, which is basically 1 unit per acre. When we went out and started looking at the Keenan farm with the Baker farm and laying out the land plan, Gary's farm, these guys are wanting to build a Tiger Woods Championship designed golf course on the property. The Baker farm lays with a lake on it. It lays in an area where it suits where you can build a golf course. Gary's farm, in all reality, could basically handle, with resource development, the conservation, the hills and the floodplain, would handle about 450 to 470 units. He says 1 unit per acre, but reality is, as we all know in planning, that you have to have open space, you have to have resource, you have to have the things. So when we looked at putting together the Keenan farm and the Baker farm, we ended up putting about 300 very high-end homes around the golf course. We were able to take the golf course around an existing development, Kennard Springs, in which I developed, and we put the golf course around there, which made the neighbors extremely happy. And we were able to move some of the homes away from and keep it very rural. When you're going to pull into 2 farms, you'll have a few houses on Coleman Road, then you go back up into the whole project, and it'll be very, very pleasant to see. You won't see it because it's going to be behind the river, and it's kind of a blocked off piece of property. Reality is, if Mr. Baker wants to sell his farm to a regular developer, not annex it, in reality, I'm saying 450 to 470. We are proposing a clubhouse, an inn, and 300 units on his farm. And then on the Keenan's farm, we're proposing a rural transit community type deal. Any other questions? Still hadn't answered your
I
question.
don't understand why that requires annexation.
We want it all part. We want to be able to provide sewer to the property. We want it all part of 1 track. We didn't want to develop half of it in Thompson Station and half of it in Williamson County. It just makes it better to work together with 1 organization. Be glad to come to Williamson County and lay out a plan for Williamson County. But at the end of the day, we are going to provide sewer, and we're going to provide, they provided space for fire station. They provide.
You're saying Thompson Station's providing sewer for this entire land?
No, the developer is going to provide the sewer.
So the
upon
sewer is
Thompson
not
Station.
an issue then, right?
No, ma'am, it's not an issue. No.
Okay. Well, Stevens Valley happens to be in 2 different counties.
Right.
It doesn't seem to have affected them. So.
Well, we were just trying to work with 1 entity, 1 government. More than welcome to work with Williamson County. We have had meetings with the county and talked about the project. It's just. it's a process that we've gone through, all the process with Thompson Station. We have been zoned. We have had the public hearings. We did get past 5-0 each time. Thompson Station wants this project. And the developers are willing to work with everyone involved to see it happen. We can get a Tiger Woods design golf course delivered in this county. It's been proven, and we want to do it. And we're just trying to work. We've said we will back off until we get this annexation issue. We're just trying to work with everyone. I've lived here 53 years and 5 generations. I'm not going anywhere, and I want this in my backyard.
Well, respectfully, I've talked to some of your neighbors, and they don't want it in
Oh,
their backyard.
absolutely. I developed, some of my neighbors that I live in there, respectfully, they're adamantly against it. Absolutely.
See, because some people told me they woke up one day and were told that they were going to have the waste treatment facility of this new development adjacent to their backyard, and they were shocked because they said, we're way outside the urban growth boundary. I live out in the country. Why is this happening? And when they went to the BOMA meeting, they were told, well, you should come to our meetings more often. You would know. And she said, why should I come? I'm not a resident of Thompson Station. So I would like to see a more holistic, whole county approach to this versus just Thompson Station and their agenda. And we just need to communicate and work together on it. That's all.
Absolutely. The developer has spent 22 months, 5 public meetings. They've done everything they know to do. They've put off public hearings. They've had public invited to the project. Mr. Castor has been vehemently against this project from day one, as obvious. And, you know, we're just trying to do what's right. We have done everything that the City of Thompson Station has asked us to do. We are now trying to do everything the county has asked us to do. And we want to be a good steward and be a great project for this county. This is a 20-year project. So, thank you.
Commissioner Pear?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to call a question.
Second. Proper motion and second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? We got one. All right. Question's been called. If you're ready to vote, if you're in favor of Resolution 7-1632, push your yes button. Opposed, your no button. Anyone wishing to change their vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
19 yes, 3 no.
The resolution passes. All right. Moving on. Resolution 7-16-1, and I'll call Nina up. A resolution making appropriations for the various funds, departments, institutions, offices, and agencies of Williamson County, Tennessee for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2016 and ending June 30th, 2017.
Move for approval.
Second. All right, Commissioner Little, the motion, Commissioner Smith, the second. At this time, we need to make sure everyone signs their conflict of interest statement. And if you'll turn those in to Diane or pass them this way or give them to Jeff. So need to do that at this time before we vote on the budget.
I know I had it.
I don't have one either, Tommy. No.
The form Jeff, Commissioner Walton's making reference to in your packet has the big county seal on it, but I have extras if you need them.
Yeah, I got it. That's okay. They'll get it. Diane, have you got any spares?
I do.
Can I have one,
An
please?
extra.
Please.
Anybody else need a blank form?
Thank you.
Commissioner Little, can we have a budget report on this resolution?
It was 4-0.
4-0. All right. And I'll turn it over to Nina, and what we'll do, she'll read like general fund and the total, we'll vote on that, and then she'll keep on going down to the different budgets, and then at the end, we'll vote on it in its entirety. Nina?
Okay. The first section is the general administration section for the county general fund. That's on page 25 of your budget book. It is $13,073,285.
Move for approval.
Commissioner Little, Commissioner Hester is the second. Any discussion? Okay, Commissioner Ford?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Nina, this doesn't deal with this specific question, but more deals with the general fund budget as a whole. When I look at the detailed budget summary that you've given us here, 2016, 2017, which estimates the fund balance draw,
Right.
I see a fund balance draw on this fund of $8.2 million. Does that sound about right? I know I'll let you flip to that page first. It was one of your handouts. It's on the sheet. It's not a page. Budget Exhibit 1 is what we'll put it for the record. Williamson County Detailed Budget Summary 2016-17 shows your fund balance draw for each fund. Looks like this, what I'm referencing.
I didn't keep a copy for
That was
myself.
the handout from this morning.
It was.
Here you go. Here's one right here. Right here. You're welcome. And there's spares in there too, probably, if anybody else can't find theirs.
Okay.
8.2 is the draw.
Yes, sir.
When I look down, then next I'm going to reference the proposed tax rate of 215.
Yes.
And I look at your reserve for delinquency 8% column.
Yes.
When I look at the entire, for the entire budget, there's a $19.3 million reserve for delinquency at that 8%. The other funds seem to line up pretty well as far as the fund balance draw. For example, in schools, we've got an estimated fund balance draw of $11.9 million. The reserve for delinquency is about $11.5 million, so fairly close. Same thing on your debt service funds. But on this one, there's a substantial difference. The fund balance draw is $8.2 million. Your reserve for delinquency is only $3.6 million. Can you explain? It seems like this is the revenues that we're expecting on this particular fund are insufficient to meet the proposed budget. Can you explain how we're going to make up that $4.6 million fund balance draw?
I can just tell you when I went through and prepared this budget, I took into consideration your beginning fund balance, our estimated revenues, which include the property tax amount, and then that does have an $8.2 million draw for it.
Right. So it looks like to me that we are either underfunding or overspending on this particular budget. So my intent, given that, and I don't know where the cuts may or may not need to come, or where the extra revenue may or may not need to come, but that with that deficit, I can't support this level of budget. So I just want to make sure I was understanding that we're actually expecting on this particular county general fund to see a 4.2 or $4.6 million actual drawdown, so it's underfunded. No? Then I'm missing something.
I'm not sure I'm following your number.
The difference between 8.2 fund balance draw and the only extra revenue that I see that could come into that fund would be this reserve for delinquency of 3.6 million. Unless there's another funding source for this budget that I don't see in here, then I see a $4.6 million drawdown of this budget that I don't see funded. So this looks like a underfunded budget to me.
You have to take into consideration your fund balance at the end of this year. So
Right.
we have a fund balance of 33 million.
I understand. So, but in the current year, with the budget that we've got and the revenue that we've got for this particular year, we don't have a way to make up that $4.6 million. So I don't see this as a balanced budget, whereas I see the others as fairly close to a balanced budget. I don't see this as a balanced budget, is my personal opinion on this one. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all I have.
All right.
I'm not sure that I follow his logic.
Okay. Commissioner Kestner?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't know how to really talk about this budget without kind of talking about it all at once, and so I apologize. I'm going to bore you for about 5 minutes here, maybe 10. There's another handout you have in front of you called handout number 2, and this is how I spent my 4th of July weekend, was trying to figure out what all this budget says. And you know, I know Nina and staff have done an incredible amount of work, and I thank them for that. We just got this 10 days ago, and it's a big budget. So if you look at this handout number 2, and you flip to the, I guess it says page 1 of 5, it's double-sided. I think that our property tax we're being asked to increase our property tax revenue by $33,388,893. It's that shaded block under section A of this first page. And I guess, Nina, that's based on the request of 2017 amount of $211,891,996. If I add up the property tax current portion only in each fund, I get to $211,891,996. Is that
I don't have what you're looking at.
can we give her a copy of this? It's your budget book. It's the Excel spreadsheet reproduction of your budget book. And so I'm wondering, is that 211,891?
Not that one, that's number 1, you need number 2.
Is that at 92% collection, or is that at 100% collection? If it's 90,
That's 92%.
so we're actually being asked to even have a bigger increase than 33,388,000, because we'd get 190 seconds of whatever that number is. So I started looking at this. Even without that other 8% coming in, that's an 18.7% increase in our property taxes, which floored me. And I know that you've wisely commented that, you know, we all vote for things, and then when it comes around for the tax increase, everybody backs away from the table, and I get that. Our challenge is, particularly in the Education Committee, is we get presented with individual requests. You know, like, how about these computers for $1.4 million or whatever? And we say, well, gee, you know, okay, but we say that without an overall context of what's the overall budget going to be for the year. And so it's amazing to see this and see the numbers that add up. Section B of that first page shows the compensation increase that's within the budget as best as I can pull it out, and I think there's $272 million worth of compensation expense, and I think that's after an assumed 4% wage increase that's assumed across the board. If I tease that out, I think that 4% wage increase, just for the benefit of the commission, is $10,475,000, or it's about a third of that $33 million block up above. And then I looked at section C as the history of raises in Williamson County, and I thank you for that information. It shows if you were a county employee and you were here June 30, 2009, today you would be at 116.5% of what your salary was back then in June of 09. If you're a teacher, I think you're doing a little better, because the teachers have a ladder, and so they wouldn't have had a 0 in 2010. They would have gotten something according to their teacher pay ladder. The Department of Labor stats, that middle block where it says wages and salaries, private industry over that same period of time would have gotten you up to 113%, so we're 3% better, although that's a March figure, it's the last number they had. So you're 3% better if you're in the county as compared to just general private industry across the economy. Consumer Price Index, I only have that through May, you're at 111%, so you're 5% better off than that. So as we consider this budget and we consider this 4% across the uniform employee wage increase, I think we're getting out ahead of private industry, we're getting ahead of CPI. Section D, again, I was trying to figure out all weekend how this budget comes together and how we meet our bills. And if you look at page 2 of 5, you know we're studying this residential development impact fee. And so I thought, well, what would that be? What would that have generated if in fact it had been in place 3 years ago? And near as I can tell, if that fee comes in at $15,000, we'd have avoided $111 million worth of debt. And since we borrow money at about 2.6% over 20 years, that would have saved us $7.2 million right now. And if you look at that right-hand side of the page, over 20 years, that savings will grow at 2,500 homes per year up to about $48.5 million of savings every year. Now, if that number comes in instead of 15,000, 12,000, that 48.5 would be 38.8. But that's a lot of money. But we got to grow into that over time. Flipping the page, and again, I apologize. This is just me getting bumfuzzled about this budget and these dollars. Tax increment financing, you know, we gave $2 million to Schneider Electric, you know, which is a $30 billion public French company, but that's chump change. It's only $2 million, I know. Hospital economics, it might interest you to know that Centennial Hospital in Davidson County, they pay Davidson County property taxes of $3,070,000 a year. Summit Medical pays $1,051,000. Southern Hills is a small thing. It's assessed at $30 million. They pay $590,000, about $600,000. So it makes me sit there and scratch my head and wonder, you know, what we get zero cash flow out of the hospital. You know, back in November of 2014, I said, why don't we study maybe selling the hospital or spinning it out or doing something? I got shot down in flames. I'm trying every way I can in this job, in this role, and my constituents want me to do this, to figure out where can we come up with revenue sources other than just dumping it on the property owners, and other than just dumping it on people, a lot of whom are on fixed income. So we need to figure out how to get some jack out of our hospital, I think. We own it. We suffer the risk of it. If we get in trouble, we're going to suffer that. Why don't we get some cash flow out of it? So then I start looking at the school's budget, which is, you know, the preponderance of our budget. So if you flip to page 4 of 5, and this is me just trying to figure this. If I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong. But this is me trying to figure this stuff out. If I look at cost per student, I look at the general purpose schools, cafeteria extended schools, and I look, and we're going from our budget this year was $306 million in the second column up to what added up to $339 million. And this isn't the 92% collection. This is projected expenses, so that you don't have that effect in here. So the school's budget, it looks like it's expected to increase about 24.4, you know, or 7.75%. And so I'm thinking, well, okay, some of that's wages. Well, if you back that out, $8.4 million is the wage component of the increase in the school's budget. And then over to the right, you know, that means the non-wage portion is $16 million. Okay.
Kestner,
Yes, sir.
Let me interrupt you. Let's stay on the general fund, and when we get to the school budget.
That's a good idea. I apologize.
We'll get with
So
that.
I'm just trying to figure out my own context of understanding within which to evaluate these. I don't know what to do other than start tearing into these line items, and it's a 2,200 row spreadsheet. I mean, it's not short, as Nina knows.
All right. Commissioner Sturgeon, on the general fund. General administration.
On here? Okay. I just want to thank Todd because this is something I can make a decision on, this summary, this distillation. I mean, getting this a week ago, I'm a chemical engineer. I'm not a tax accountant or anything else. So I believe we're elected to represent our people, not to be financial experts. So I'm new in this job. I've only been doing it for 2 years, but this is very helpful for me. I don't know how we're supposed to make educated decision without just rubber stamping unless we have some decision criteria to make. I'd like to have more than one option. I'd like to understand why, if we have to have a tax increase, what we're getting for it. And I'm not able to consume this very easily. This, I can. So thank you for that, Todd.
All right. Any other discussion? So we have a motion and a second. If you want to vote on the general fund, general administration, I'm sorry. The subtotal is $13,073,285. If you're in favor, push your yes button and confirm. Opposed, your no button and confirm. Anyone wishing to change their vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
16 yes and 6 no.
All right. The general administration passes. Next, we'll move on to finance.
Total finance is $5,054,208. That's on page 29.
I'll entertain a motion.
Move for approval.
Second.
Commissioner Milliken, the second. Any discussion? I see none. If you're in favor of the finance at $5,054,208, push your yes button and confirm. Opposed, your no button and confirm. Anyone wishing to change their vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
18 yes, 4 no.
Resolution passes. Let's do one more. Administration of Justice.
$4,168,814. That's on page 35.
All right. Any discussion? I see none. If you're in favor of administration of justice, oh, I'm sorry, we need a motion and a second.
Move for approval.
All right. Mr. Smith, the second. So if you're in favor of administration of justice at $4,168,814, push your yes button and confirm. Opposed, your no button and confirm. Anyone wishing to change their vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
19 yes, 3 no.
Y'all want to do the sheriff's department? Are we good there? Or public safety? Go ahead, Nina.
$26,280,438, page 43.
Commissioner Kestner? Oh, we need a motion first.
Move for approval.
Second.
Commissioner Milliken, the second. Commissioner Little, the motion. Commissioner Kestner?
Are there helicopters in that budget?
Yes, sir, it is.
And do you happen to know what the total helicopter and aviation expenses projected for the county are going to be?
Jennifer Sheriff may have that. I know this year we were going to include it in the subcategory of 54110 so that they could go through a full year's expenses to get a better cost for the county, and that would be split out next year.
But are we talking 100,000, 400,000, 500,000 for our free helicopters?
He's looking.
Like a free pony?
He's looking.
Okay.
Commissioner, I don't see the exact amount. I assure you, it's way under $100,000. We just got notification this morning that, and I promised you that we would try to take as much of it out of the asset forfeiture that we can. and we just got notice this morning we're gonna get $92,764 hopefully this next week. So that will be in the pool to fund those.
But that's a source of revenue. I'm wondering what the expense is, of course.
We have not spent over $50,000 on them so far.
But we're gonna hire some people, is that right?
We've got one pilot in the budget, yes.
What's he cost, if I may ask?
Be about the same as a lieutenant's salary, it'll be in the 40s.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Danner?
I'm going to publicly thank you. I have a little concern about the helicopters, but overall, I wanted to take the opportunity to thank you for publicly thank you. I know I've thanked you privately and maybe even before publicly, but as a department head, I have witnessed over the 6 years that I've been on this board an amazing effort, a frugal effort, an honest, transparent, frugal effort to save county tax dollars, and I just want to thank you again for doing that. I also just want to say to my fellow commissioners, I think you can see by the split votes that we are struggling because we have a budget we are voting on with the tax increase baked in. And some of us have issues with this 19% increase in the rate. I think there's a lot of county residents that would take issue with this too. I think a lot of them don't even know this is happening, and when they find out, they're going to be frustrated. So just for myself, I'm going to be voting yes on some of these sections and no on others. If the tax rate of this 19% does not pass, I for one have no problem with coming back and revisiting each of these sections and even doing an across-the-board cut. So I just wanted to put that out there and try to explain at least my back and forth votes on some of these sections.
Commissioner Herbert?
Sheriff Long, I think we talked about this before. Can you tell me what is the amount of overtime pay you're having to pay your deputies at the courthouse due to court running so late?
I don't have the figure with me right now. I know it's increased over the last 3 years. I think we're up to about $35,000 right now.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Lawrence?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to echo my struggles too with this budget, because this is this is probably one of the largest tax increases in Williamson County history we're voting on here, and I don't know how to vote when we're going to be doing a study soon that would, as Commissioner Kastner has shown here, possibly significantly impact tax revenues going forward. If we adopt that tax revenue, it seems to me that these decisions need to be made in tandem. If we were going to make that decision, you know, if we're going to raise taxes now, we're going to raise taxes again by passing an additional impact fee tax later. And my problem with that is once you raise taxes, I don't know many governments that give the money back to their constituents. Once it gets to the certain level, I mean, it stays there forever. And so if I pass this tax increase today and we pass another tax increase later this year on the impact fee, I don't see this going down. So I'm just really struggling with how to vote on this tax increase, because it is one of the largest tax increases in Williamson County history. And I've got a lot of constituents that have written me, and people on fixed income, they say, you know, please don't raise my taxes that much, you know. And it seems to me that so far there's been no discussion about cutting any of the budget, so I'm going to have to vote no on everything.
All right. Any other discussion? I see none. You ready to vote? If you're in favor of the public safety fund at $26,280,438, push your yes button and confirm. Opposed, your no button and confirm. Anyone wishing to change their vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
18 yes, 4 no.
All right. Let's move on and see if we can get through the total general fund. Public health and welfare.
$4,965,703.
I'll entertain a motion.
Move for approval.
Second.
Commissioner Hester, the second. Any discussion? I see none. If you're in favor of public health and welfare at $4,965,703, 703, push your yes button and confirm. Opposed, your no button and confirm. Anyone wishing to change their vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
16 yes, 6 no.
Resolution passes. Moving on to social, cultural, and recreational services.
$16,035,490 on page 55.
Any discussion?
Move for approval.
Oh, thank you. Commissioner Smith, the second. I see none. You ready to vote? If you're in favor of social, cultural, and recreational services at $16,035,490, push your yes button and confirm. Opposed, your no button and confirm. Anyone wishing to change their vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
15 yes, 7 no.
Resolution passes. Next, agricultural and natural resources.
$469,112.
I'll entertain a motion. Commissioner Little, Commissioner Herbert, the second. Any discussion? I see none. If you're in favor of architectural and natural resources, at $469,112, push your yes button and confirm. Opposed, your no button and confirm. Anyone wishing to change their vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
16 yes, 6 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution for other government of other general government. Nina?
$20,146,893.
I'll entertain a motion.
Move for approval.
Commissioner Herbert, the second. Any discussion? I see none. If you're in favor of other general government at $20,146,893, push your yes button and confirm. Opposed, your no button and confirm. Anyone wishing to change their vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
15 yes, 7 no.
Resolution passes. Now we're going to vote on the total general fund? Okay, so we'll vote on the,
On all those, but it's still, one of them came up incorrectly. Can I fix that, or is it in stone now? I can fix it? Okay. I wanted no on all of them, and I noticed it was either finance or administration of justice came up as a yes for me, and I believe I pressed no.
okay.
It was finance.
It was finance?
Finance did not show you as a no.
Okay, so that needs to be changed to a no.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, now we'll vote on the total general fund at $90,193,943. If you're in favor of the total general
Move for
fund.
approval.
Commissioner Little, approval. Commissioner Hester, the second. If you're in favor of the total general fund, push your yes button and confirm.
There's the discussion.
Commissioner Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be very brief. Ms. Graham, I think it's we're hearing from quite a few commissioners right now that one of the difficulties that we're having is trying to absorb a year's worth of work that you do. I know in your department, putting all this together within just a few business days and even over the weekends. I can't even begin to imagine how much time, energy, and focus it takes to put together a budget of this size. And so I certainly do appreciate the amount of work that you put into it. But is there any way that we can get this sooner to allow us to digest, this huge book of numbers, to be able to ask questions? What's the likelihood that we can see this possibly 3 or 4 weeks before this?
That's something that I can certainly look at next year.
Can we have your commitment on that?
Mm-hmm.
So we'll have your commitment, then we'll have this 3 to 4 weeks before the next budget vote.
It would depend on how all of our committee meetings fall.
Of course.
but I would certainly try to do that.
Okay, because it's one of the difficulties for many of us that do, that also work outside of the commission, is to get to all of the committee meetings, you know, to hear what's going on. I know a lot of the business goes down there. So I'll look forward then, based on your comments here, that we'll get the book next year 3 to 4 weeks ahead of time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Commissioner Sturgeon?
What, is there any reason why we couldn't defer this until we have more time to analyze the information?
We have to pass it by July 31st.
Legally, the state requires that we pass by July 31st. What if we all vote no? I know that's not going to happen, but I mean,
We'd have to come back and work it out.
Is that
before
true?
July 31st.
Is that true of the school's budget as well?
Yes.
Well, at least by then we would know what's going on with the impact study or have a better idea.
No, I want to clarify the impact fee. It is a fee, it's not a tax, but that is on new debt going forward. That does not cover current debt. So that's something that we've got to continue to pay. It's not for operations. It is solely for capacity for new schools going forward.
So it can't be used for operating costs, is that what
No,
you're saying?
It cannot.
It can only be for capital expenses?
Going forward.
Going forward.
So you've got to pay for your current debt that are on the books. It cannot be used for that.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Kestner?
That's correct, Nina. You're absolutely right. If I thought that we had a September 1st deadline on the budget, is that not correct, Mr. Mosley?
I don't believe it is.
I was thinking we had a September 1st, not a July 31st.
If you don't have a budget approved by then, you will lose your education funding by the state.
Right, so you've got to have it done by that date.
Mm-hmm.
If someone wanted to offer an amendment to look at implementing a pilot for the hospital, that is a payment in lieu of taxes from a 501c3 qualified entity, in order to lessen the effect of this tax increase, when would be the right time to make that motion? And secondly, if someone were to want to make a motion to defer or forego the 4% across the board wage increase, when would be the right time to make that motion?
In terms of the latter, the wage increase, you would have to do it on each of the areas in which included the wage increase. So each subheading that included a wage increase would have to be amended to that.
So that horse is out of the barn at this point?
You haven't voted on the general fund yet. I mean, you can amend those items if you wish to do so.
And that would affect these sub-funds too. I think I would like to offer that amendment. I move that we forego the 4% across the board wage increase that would be coming on the heels of a 5% across the board wage increase that we had last year.
Proper motion. Who's the second? Mr. Ryan? Yeah, it'd be 0 pay increase.
Unless someone wants to amend the amendment, yes.
All right. Commissioner Pear on the amendment?
Of course, that wouldn't affect teachers because they have their separate ladder.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, that was actually my question. Would this apply to just county general employees or the other 4,000 that are?
I think all non-teachers, I think.
Can I do a point of order?
Yes.
It is 11:45, and they are going to be waiting for us to lunch, and I think this is going to be a heavy discussion, and I think we should wait till after lunch and pause here and then take this up after lunch.
I think it's a good idea.
Proper motion. Just second.
Second.
We'll recess till about 1:15.
If I could, excuse me just a moment, if I could get all county commissioners, right out this door to my left is the trolley. If you all would please get on the trolley. When you get to the Public Safety Center, please go in the front door and be ready for your annual photograph.